The power and sharpness of your mind have grown to where they are now. You have unknowingly gained power in each of your many past lives, which are different from the one you are living now. Every mental battle has a point: getting rid of pain, controlling hunger, learning new skills, making progress in an art or career, and facing mistakes and flaws that aren't good enough. These fights are spiritual urges that pull you toward a higher power and a better understanding of who you are. When you realize something like this, you are always happy, because being happy is the most important thing in life. At this point, you have an enhanced form of yourself and all the mental qualities you've always wanted, hitting levels you've never reached before. The fact that you may be unhappy and dissatisfied with your flaws is proof of this. You wouldn't be able to see those mistakes if your mind wasn't so clear. Right now, you're not where you might have been when you were feeling relaxed and sure of yourself in every way. However, you know that you have gone too far the other way when you look at yourself now. Some flaws have suddenly become more obvious to you, and you can see that they are getting worse over time. It's not true. The God who lives inside you, the power that keeps growing inside you, has given you a sense of being flawed, though that sense of being flawed has never been so close to being relatively complete as it is now. You can now see and feel things about yourself that you have never seen or felt before. That is the best proof of this. There may be a hole under your house that smells bad and is full of bugs. You were in a lot more pain before the hole was found. It doesn't matter how gross it is to you. It will be cleaned out as soon as it is found. It's possible that the bad stuff lives in holes in our mental design, but that's no reason to give up. When the God inside us shows us that He exists, we don't have to say, "I'm such a flawed being that I'm sure I'll never be able to fix all my flaws." But you can. You are now making them better. Every time your mind protests against something you did wrong, it moves your spirit forward. But don't think you can heal them all in an hour, a day, a week, or a year. At some point in the future, you will always know what you need to work on. If you want to be better, you have to picture the flaw that needs to be fixed. Or, to put it another way, you have to picture your character becoming even more complete, more developed, with more and more subtleties, and the force that always comes to you being spread out in more and more complicated ways. That's why you won't have to worry about being such a flawed being when you realize that you are one of God's homes, that you are building with ever greater beauty. No skill ever stops getting better. In the same way that a tree grows all year, it never stops. If you practice something for a month, a year or two, and then pick it back up, you will find that your ability has grown, that you have new thoughts about it, and that you have a new power of performance. I'm sure you want to know what life is all about. You can't really aim your life. Destiny guides it, a rule controls it, and it leads to an endless source of happiness. You can't help but grow as your power grows. It doesn't look like it, but the pain you've been through is because of the same growth of spirit that pushed you harder against what was making you unhappy. In the end, you had to see the pain as proof that you were going in the wrong direction and needed to get off of it as soon as possible. And when you really want to know the right thing to do, someone or something will always come along to show you. This is because it is a natural law that every sincere call is answered, and really praying for something always brings what you need. What is the point of living? The goal is to get the most happiness out of it, and learn how to live so that every day is looked forward to, because we know it will be just as fun, or even more fun, than the day we're living now. Getting rid of the memory that time is running out, being thankful for living, rising above sickness or pain, controlling and commanding our thoughts so that they always get stronger and can work and act separately from our bodies, bringing us everything we need from home, like food and clothes, without stealing or being unfair to anyone, and growing in power so that the spirit always heals, strengthens, and rejuvenates the body by using it. We keep any part or function from weakening, withering, or deteriorating. We are always finding new ways to have fun, both for ourselves and for other people. Because we can make other people happy and useful, they are always glad to have us around. To be friends with everyone and not enemy of anyone. What will happen in those places where people are real and much more living than us? They have learned how to get the most out of life and are always learning more. That is what every spirit will eventually end up doing. As you grow in this life and others, you can't get away from ultimate and lasting happiness. All the pain you feel or have felt is like a push or a blow to keep you from going in the wrong direction and to make you follow the law. As your awareness grows, you will understand the law that guides you away from pain and toward more happiness more clearly. You'll get to a place in your mind where life is pure joy. In that state, time stops, just like it does when we're deeply involved in something that makes us happy or excited, like when we think about a play or an exciting show. The Bible says that 1 day shall be as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years shall be as 1 day. Hindus believe that nirvana includes all the possible ways that life could come to earth. My sister is talking about the peace of mind and calmness that come from knowing for sure that every effort we make and every project we start will succeed, and that the happiness we feel now is just a stepping stone to even greater happiness in the future. If you thought that the trip abroad you want so much is almost here, just like you're sure that the sun rose this morning, if you were sure that you were going to master your unique skill and succeed in drawing, speaking, acting, sculpting, or any other art form, just like you know you can walk downstairs, you wouldn't be afraid. When our lives are at their best, we will fully understand this. We will know for sure that when we focus our mind and thoughts on a goal, project, or pursuit, we activate the strong attractive force of thought substance, which brings us the resources, opportunities, forces, or people we need to carry out our plan. You no longer worry about your text getting to its target because, even though you don't know much about energy, you know that it will get your message there if you use it in a certain way. You will also feel confident because you will know that if you control and direct your thoughts in a certain way, they will do what you want them to do. Before men learned how to use electricity, it was just as common and had the same amount of power as it does now. However, it wasn't very useful for sending notes because we lived together. It was because we didn't know how to direct it. The amazing power of human thought is still with us today in the same way. It's a waste because we don't know how to focus and guide it. Because we don't know any better and have done it our whole lives, we charge our mental batteries in the wrong direction and send out ray after ray of anger, envy, grumbling, complaints, slights, or some other kind of ugliness. All of these things are real things that are used in the wrong way, which can hurt others and will eventually hurt ourselves. Here is the key to success in this life and all others. Never let your mind think of something that is impossible, and never throw away or reject what seems like the craziest idea, because you never know what its closed doors are blocking. You start the bad habit of yelling "impossible" at every new idea when you say something is impossible because it seems impossible to you. Everything inside your mind becomes a jail with locked doors, and you are the only person who can get out. With God, anything is possible. You do good things for God. Saying that something is impossible in terms of what you can accomplish or become is equivalent to committing a sin. Denying God's ability to work through you is denying the endless Spirit's ability to accomplish far more than you can imagine in your mind right now. Saying something is impossible means that you think it is impossible for everyone else to understand. This is a big risk, like using a simple ruler to try to measure space that never ends. If you say impossible and I cannot, you make it impossible for yourself to happen. The biggest thing stopping you from the possible is this thought of yours. It will push you so you can't stop it. Don't give in as much as possible. No one can successfully fight against the fact that everything is always getting better. You should tell yourself, I can become anything I admire. For example, I can become a writer, a speaker, an actor, or an artist. This will let you into your own temple of art. When you said impossible, I didn't open it. Your I can't was the iron bolt that locked that door shut. I can, on the other hand, is the power that turns that bolt around. Christ's spirit or thought had the power to control the weather and calm the storm. Because you are a part of the great whole, your spirit has the power to grow into a fruit. With his mind's power to focus on the unseen part of things, he was able to change that invisible part into food, loaves, and fish. That power is built into every spirit, and every spirit is becoming more like that power. You see a healthy kid today who can't even lift a small weight, but you know that power and potential are hidden in that weak kid that will let him easily lift any load in 20 years. This is how we can know what the bigger power, the coming spiritual power, will be like, even though we are still spiritual babies. Life is so bad here because we don't know the law, so we break it and get its pains instead of its joys. No matter how powerful someone has become, we can't learn everything we need to know about the law from their past records or experiences. Those notes or lives could be very helpful to us and give us ideas. There are, however, both general rules that everyone must follow and specific laws that only apply to one different person. Because we are all made up of different parts, you can't directly follow my lead to make yourself happy, and I can't do the same for you. Those parts have been a part of our souls and real selves for a long time as we have grown and changed. You need to learn for yourself what your nature needs so that it can be happy all the time. You're your own book. Page after page, chapter after chapter, you have to open that book and read them as they come to you each day, month, and year. You are the only one who can read them for you. It's impossible for someone else to think or feel the same way you do, or for things or people around you to affect you in the same way. Plus, this is why no one else can tell you what you need to make your life fuller, better, and happier. You are the only one who knows how to do it. You have to figure out for yourself what kinds of relationships, foods, and ways of doing business, art, or your job work best for you. Talking to people who are interested in the same thing as you can help you a lot. People who know more about the general rules than you can give you tips that can help you get stronger, braver, or come up with new business ideas. By getting together with sincere, honest, and devout people on a daily basis, who also have a clear goal in mind, and talking to them and them to you. However, you stray from the main road when you follow the advice of any person or think that they are always right. Relying on someone else's studies with a certain mix of drugs or elements means that you are using their results as the measure for your own mix of elements. There are more minerals and chemicals in your mix, like phosphorus, magnesium, copper, cero, and more. The elements outside of it may act in very different ways. There are more combinations and recombinations of minerals and substances in your body than earth science has been able to think of. You also have even finer and more subtle spiritual correspondences of these minerals in your spirit or thought. They are all put together in different ways and in different amounts than in any other physical or spiritual body. So how can anyone else figure out what this unique combination does, if not you? There are some rules that everyone must follow, but each person must apply those rules to himself. A ship is always moved by the wind. Even though every ship uses the air in a different way, it is a general rule that our thoughts are forces that can and do affect others outside of our bodies. Our connections play a significant role in the quality of our thinking and its power to change things. Thus, if I see that your thought is better or holds more power than mine, and that it helps you move forward in the world, I think you shouldn't pick your relationship type or way of life. I could use your ideas as a test, but I need to keep in mind that they are just tests. I need to stay away from that usual mistake of following and worshipping someone else. Jesus Christ once told some of his followers not to worship him. "Do not call me good," he said. Christ said, "There is only God who is good." "I am the way and the life," he said. The way I understand the text, this means that he knew he could give information about some general rules that he knew and that also applied to him as a spirit. But he never said that his own life, with all the problems and experiences that come with being human, should be strictly repeated. As a strong spirit, I know that I need the help of other spirits when I pray to the endless Spirit of good for more strength and freedom from sin and fear, like when the thought of being crucified makes my spirit shake. Even though I know this, I refuse to show my fans that I am God or the infinite. Instead, I tell them to devote their love to the all-powerful, timeless, and unfathomable power that all good comes from, and that can be reached through prayer and the mind's wishes. As they worship God, the endless and unfathomable power that moves constantly in the infinite universe, they should only worship God. No one has seen or will ever see this power, except as they observe its different forms in the sun, the star, the cloud, the wind, the bird, the beast, the flower, the animal, or in man, as he becomes a future angel or archangel, always looking to the source of its power and never worshipping a form of that power, which would make the creature greater than the Creator. That power is still at work today and can be seen in every man, woman, and child on the world. To use a religious phrase, it is God working in us and through us. We are all part of the power that never ends and that always takes us to higher, better, and happier levels of being. No matter how they live their lives or how smart they are, every man or woman is stronger and better than they were before, even if this seems to go against everything they believe. Humans and all other living things, whether they are spirit or matter, want to get better and better. This desire is mostly unaware until the mind grows. The desire of God works in even the worst drunk, making him want to get sober, and it works in the worst liar too, making him feel, even if only slightly, that telling the truth is better. It works on people you might think are disgusting, regular people. When asked how many times someone should be forgiven for their sins, Christ said that there should be no limit on how many times a person should forgive the effects or foolishness of another. We should be able to think and feel as kind and helpful thoughts as we want for someone who falls a lot or has trouble eating for some reason. A very bad thing that many people do subconsciously is say or think to an angry man, "He's lost. There's nothing more we can do for him." When we do this, we send out a belief that everything is hopeless and useless. This person will feel that way because it will slow them down in their efforts to get out of the swamp they are in, just like our own similar thoughts have slowed us down in our own efforts to get out of the swamps of indecision, discouragement, bad humor, and hateful and jealous thoughts. But fighting for what you believe in makes your spirit stronger. Facing and beating your own critical and unsupportive thoughts makes your spirit stronger until you reach a point where you can say to others, "I would rather have your approval than your censure, but I do not depend on your approvals or censure, for my most rigid judge and my surest punishment for all the evil I do comes from my own mind, the god or goddess in me, from whose judgment and displeasure there is no escape." But as the spirit gets clearer, that judge inside us becomes more forgiving of our mistakes, because he knows that as we move from a rougher to a finer expression, there must be so much evil to be fought against and finally overcome. There are some flaws that are built into every man and woman. It is impossible for man to get rid of this quality in his own spirit, the quality of always rising toward more power and happiness, until the spirit beats them, which it will, because that's what the spirit does. People will be punished if they use this as an excuse to sin, do something wrong, lie, steal or kill, and say, "I cannot help it, I am predestined to it." In the same way, maybe not by the law of man, but by the natural or divine law, which has its own punishments for all kinds of sins, like murder, lust, lying, stealing, having bad thoughts, or being too fat. And these punishments are always happening. Thousands and thousands of people suffer today for the sins they commit because they don't know the law of life. The weight of these punishments has grown and makes people want to learn more about these laws even more. That's why this desire is being met and these questions are being answered. It's a natural law that what the mind wants, it gets, and the more minds that want it, the faster it happens. A few decades ago, steam partially met people's desire for faster movement, while electricity mostly met people's desire for faster communication between people. These are only the first steps toward finding and using bigger powers, not just in the outside world, but also in the unseen parts of man and woman, of you and me. You eat in moderation because experience has taught you that the greatest pleasure comes from that moderation. You are kind and considerate to your friend, not because you constantly have in mind the fear of losing that friend if you are not kind and considerate, but because it pleases you to perform kind acts. From now on, our race will begin to leave evil forms of expression behind, not out of fear of the punishments that come with breaking the law. This has always been the case with human law, and even divine law as understood by humans. You should not do these things because you will be punished. God has been portrayed as stern, cruel, and angry, and the preacher's song has been punishment and punishment, punishment and punishment. People should stop thinking about punishment and instead be led and tempted toward greater goodness, purity, and refinement by the pleasures that grow as we become more refined. People needed to be warned about punishment when they were being the cruelest, and punishment was the only way to do that. Because the race was blind, it had to be kept on the right road by a series of painful pokes and hits that hurt. However, we no longer need punishment, just like you don't need a man with a club to get you to go somewhere. This is what the more aware and sensitive members of our race can see. The healthy and regenerating power of spring affects how your body grows and changes. The same rules and factors that drive growth are present in all organized bodies, like plants, birds, animals, and trees. Every year at the start of spring, a force from the sun comes to Earth and affects all organized life, but especially people because their minds are the most advanced, complicated, and powerful things on Earth. Man takes in most of this force, and he will take in even more in the future. He will get even more out of it as he learns how to put himself in the best positions to receive it. In the field of material science, it's called heat, but heat is just a word for how it looks. As hot as the sun is, it is not really hot until it hits Earth and interacts with its materials. A few miles above the Earth's surface, there is little to no heat. If this force showed up as heat at sunrise or during its passage, the air on the mountain tops would be as warm as the air in the valleys. However, we know that on the highest peaks, snow and ice are always there because the sun's force is not mixed with the Earth's elements enough to turn it into the level of heat that people feel in the plains and valleys. This force makes the sap in trees move and circulate more quickly. When the sun shines on trees in the new year, they start their life cycle. The sap gives the tree new life, and blooms, flowers, and fruits grow from it. As seen in oak or hickory woods, this unseen force from the sun also gives the tree the power to get new nutrients from the ground through its roots, and helps it shed the dead leaves from the previous year's crop that have been there all winter. Animals and birds, especially those that are wild or in their natural state, are also affected by this force in late winter and early spring. It makes them lose their fur or feathers. But this shedding of old matter that can be seen is only a small part of the change that takes place inside them. The bird or animal's body also gets rid of old, unseen matter through holes or other tubes. This happens in different ways, some of which can be seen and some of which can't. As new elements grow on the outside, they replace the old ones inside. The same rule applies to your body. In late winter and early spring, you go through a rebuilding process, getting rid of old and dead cells to make room for new ones. If you let this force work on you in the best way possible, you will learn to rest and disconnect, either mentally or physically, when you need to. This is similar to what birds and other animals do when they are renewing themselves, getting rid of old things and welcoming new ones. As with theirs, the strength you receive now is energy that you can't see with your own eyes. The new feathers, fur, skin, and internal and external tissues of your body, as well as the new shoots, leaves, and branches, are all physical signs of this force. They are crystallizations that form from a chemical solution that the bird, the tree, and your body are all immersed in. They are empty of anything that was taken from last year or the things that were in that solution. You, the bird, the tree, or any other thing that can be seen, has the same relationship to this covered solution as the metal moving in the mineral solution that pulls the crystals out of the solution. Matter and spirit are not really that different from each other. Matter is just a form of spirit or thought that we can see with our eyes. Matter is just a temporary form of force, like a lump of coal that, when set on fire, releases the force that is locked up in it to move the engine. After that, the lump is mostly hidden, so all around us the force always goes from being visible to being invisible and back again. 1 hour, millions and millions of tons of unseen matter may be floating above our heads. The next day, it may fall as rain or snow, and a few hours later, it may be picked up again. Even though they can't be seen, the natural element crystallizes best in solutions that don't move around much. That's also true for your body. In this spring rebirth and recrystallization of its elements, you should rest whenever you feel like it, day or night, to get the most out of the warming and renewing element of spring. If you keep your mind and body working against what they want to do, your muscles will work hard, just by willpower. If you work your mind or body until you're almost completely worn out without realizing it until the job is done, which is what thousands and thousands of people do and are forced to do, then all of this healing and recovery power can't fully work in the body. You stop the new thing that is renewing the tree and making the buds grow from blending in with your body. You're holding on to something that's broken and should be thrown away, just like the oak does with its dead leaves before winter. So, instead of new and better life, you take this dead thing with you, like a dead weight. Men get weaker, their hair turns white, and their faces get lines because of this and other things. The breakdown of the body, which we call old age, is completely caused by the fact that people don't believe or know how to get a steady source of strength, which would give their spirits new clothes. Muscle strength and steady body movement are not always signs of good health. For example, a man who is usually weak will probably need the help of 2 or 3 people to stay alive while he has a fever. Now that the insanity is over, he feels like a child again, but after the crisis is over, he generally says he is safe again. In the same way, thousands of people live a feverish and excited life in business, where there is intense and almost fierce competition. They are always tense and want to keep up. They can't work in this state unless they are tense in some way. If, by nature's own will, their jitters calm down and they feel sleepy sometimes, they take this as a sign that they are sick and decide to get medical help. However, sometimes they get better and stronger at the end of a long period of being sick and having to lie in bed sick for weeks or months while being treated as if they had a dangerous disease because people think it is serious. Why does this take place? Because nature can also rebuild a body that has been worn out by forcing you to stop doing something physical or mental. This is similar to how it would work in bad situations. Finally, the person gets better, and his bones, muscles, and nerves are stronger than before. This is because nature was able to use the time of rest and calm to make the necessary repairs. Even if you don't believe it at first, the idea of spring's regenerating power will help you a lot. If you don't get rid of a living truth when it first comes up in your mind, it will take root and live there, doing you a lot of good. Because men work out all the time, they wear out much faster than most people think. For example, a tough sailor's sturdiness doesn't last more than a few years, and by 45, he's usually an old man. A farmer who works from dawn to dusk every day and believes that work is the best thing in the world often feels like a pile of bones and aches and pains by the age of 50. A hard worker's average lifespan is much shorter than that of someone whose job isn't as physically demanding. These people toil and get dizzy all the time. I spent years working with picks and teams of men, lifting, moving, and fighting in the mines of California. I saw that when the body is truly tired, the last 3 hours of a 10 or 12-hour workday were done by the men, no matter how strong they were, with much less spirit than the previous day's work, and often with only the appearance of work, unless the boss was always keeping a close eye on his men. Why? Since they were no longer physically able to work, it was only their will that kept them going. A lot of the strong, tough miners aged 25 or older who worked like this in 1860 have died, and of the ones who are still alive, 4/5 of them are physically broken men. Periods of rest and periods of action happen all the time in the kingdom of nature. During the winter, trees rest. The flow of sap is slow, and no new leaves, flowers, or fruits grow. Wildlife and birds only eat and sleep after the summer mating season. Some animals and snakes sleep all winter, and the earth needs to rest so that it can grow the best crops. If the crop is constantly fertilized, the food it produces doesn't taste or be as healthy as food grown in natural dirt. In its normal state, plants don't have any diseases, pests, or animals that eat them. As a person gets older, he or she realizes that they can't put constant, intense pressure on their nerves or willpower or make demands on their body year after year, from childhood to 40 or 50 years old, without doing serious damage. They also realize that they can receive much more of this element if they allow themselves times of rest and receptivity, like trees and animals do in their natural state. You will then have much better physical health, including more flexible muscles, more energy, and a clearer mind. You will also awaken in a way that makes you aware of skills that most people don't know about or question exist. There are some Asian and Indian groups that can use these senses and abilities to some degree because they live more peacefully and in tune with the seasons, like trees and animals. They don't have our strong and bold force that invades and takes over for a while, like England did with India, and our people have almost finished subduing the Indians. But remember, this force doesn't win in the end. That being said, the power of thought wins out in the end because it works best when the body is almost still. It is subtle, quiet, and unseen, and it works for the greatest good to improve and polish the rude, warlike, and dominating people by giving them the culture of the defeated. So, the art and culture of Egypt that had been defeated were brought to Syria. Hundreds of years later, the Assyrians took this power and used it to conquer Greece. Even though Greece lost to Rome, Greek culture lived on in the Roman city. At that time, the Goths, Vandals, and other wild peoples of northern Europe took over Rome physically. But in the minds of those people, the influence of ancient Italy was the main thing that made them Goth, Hun, and Vandal. In modern German, French, Spanish, and Italian, every earthquake, war, and conquest has made this power settle in a wider area. The brightest minds in England are now studying very carefully the laws that India has finally recognized. That power is going to subdue England in a way, because England is already sitting at India's feet, learning the alphabet of laws and force in a way that her sages have not yet seen fit. What kind of power is this? It will make you wonder how it was done. How does it get made? There is power in minds that work together perfectly toward a single goal and don't use all of their energy for physical action. If you put all of your mind and strength into working with your hands every day, year after year, without caring about the urges and seasons, then you keep that strength working on the instrument, your body, and wear it out. You stop it from working away from the body. You stop the body from absorbing and using this healing spring force. You make it a habit to keep the body moving all the time, and you stop yourself from getting the right sleep schedule to give your body the most energy when you're awake. Because if your body and mind are tired every day, the same way of thinking takes over and wears you out. At night, you start to believe and wrongly believe that you haven't done anything if you don't work with your body. Your brain can't be at rest when your thought power could work away from your body, which could give you a result 100 times better than what you could get by just working out. The part of a plant's leaf, root, or seed that affects the body when taken as medicine is the plant's force that is released when it is digested. The force that comes from bread or meat is the force that is released when it is eaten. The body burns the food it takes in slowly, like coal does in a boiler. The force that is released by this burning is used to work the body, like an engineer uses heat to run an engine. The top layer of a new bud will be more delicate, but that bud has the most active strength, principle, and quality of the plant when it is used for medicine. Buds that are very soft are used to make tea. Some people in California get sick from poison oak bud. Because it puts out such a strong smell, it doesn't matter how close they are. Spring's young buds hold the power that will later make the leaf or branch stronger in your own organization. When spring comes around, the same delicate elements are present. If your body feels weak in the spring, it means that strong new shoots are growing inside you. But that strength hasn't had a chance to work on your material structure and make the new bone, muscle, and sinew that will come later, as long as you don't make your body or mind work too hard and damage the new growth or crystallization in the same way that a hurricane damages a tree. How can I go about my business and make money if I take my body to nature to fix it, you might ask. I will tell you, the rules of business are not the rules of nature. People always get what's coming to them when nature says rest and they say work. People don't just get sick, hurt, or die because of what they call vicious habits or vicious practices. Thousands of people die every year in long, painful pain, in nice beds, and in the best society. Overconsumption, cancer, mental illness, dropsy, gout, fevers, and rabies always cause trouble among the most polite people. What does this belong to? If you feel like you need a break but can't because of things going on in your life right now, trust that your strong desire, prayer, or urgent need to receive and use the healing powers of nature will somehow give you the chance to do so. When you really need something, the thought and wish that comes up is like a prayer. It will bring you help and pull you away from bad situations and ways of living. You should say this statement over and over because it is the key to growth and progress toward a better and happy life. Christ of Judea embodied this great law when he said, "Ask and you shall receive, seek and you shall find, knock and it shall be opened to you." It would be wise for me not to try to explain this mystery of how sincere thought, desire, or aspiration always brings about the thing or result that is wanted, because this and other mysteries are impossible to explain. It seems like every time a claimed cause is given for a natural event, we find a bigger mystery in the cause itself. People say that wind is moving air, but what makes it happen and keeps it going? The moon's pull on the earth was once used to explain the tides, but what other power drives the enormous system of currents that constantly flow through the oceans? These facts have become more clear over the last 40 years. What power makes our lungs breathe all day and night and sends blood to every part of our bodies? All things that live and grow have the power of God, the Spirit, or the endless force of good at work in them. We are the only ones who have been given the information we need to use this power wisely. The bodies of trees and animals eventually die because they aren't very smart. In the same way, the material parts of people have died in the past, but this won't always be the case. Paul says that death is the last big enemy that needs to be slain. In other words, as people learn more about and believe in the amazing forces around them, they will figure out how to put themselves in the way of these forces. In this way, he will make the mortal part live forever. We think it's possible to live forever in the flesh, which means that a physical body can be kept as long as the spirit wants to use it, and that as the years go by, the body's strength and vitality may grow, keeping it young forever. We think that the stories from old myths about immortals or beings with powers that are different from and better than human powers are based on real events. The law says that for every need or prayer of people, there must be a supply. This potential must come about because of that law. More minds now see the greater prospects of life and value living in the physical more than ever. This makes the desire for a longer and better physical life stronger than ever. "I have just learned to live, and it is almost time to die," is a common way to say that demand. The body will grow to meet these needs through a slow set of spiritual processes that work and are always changing, spiritualizing and perfecting matter. These processes don't keep the body a person has now. They keep a body that is always growing and getting better. There is a spiritual process going on behind all illnesses, pain, and infirmities. The goal of this process is to rebuild the body by bringing in new elements and getting rid of old ones. However, a much more important rebuilding of the spirit is going on behind the scenes. The spirit is what the body is made of. The body is always working on these things, and you can feel them in your face, stomach, and other parts of your body, even when you're not feeling well or putting things off. Each illness is the refreshed spirit's attempt to bring in new energy to get rid of old, mostly dead matter. But because the race hasn't seen this goal, the spiritual process or effort, along with the pain and discomfort that comes with it, has been seen and feared as a sign that death is near. Because people didn't know about spiritual law and only looked at what they could see, the process's brief and required weakness of the body was seen as a completely bad thing. The false idea that the body will eventually age, wither, become weaker, and die without any power in the world being able to stop it is reinforced by the belief that this will happen. The parts of the body are always changing based on the state of the mind. It is adding to itself aspects of decay, weakness, and physical death in some mental states. In a different emotional state, it is giving itself parts of power and eternal life. In both cases, the spirit thinks or believes what it sees. Thoughts and ideas become real things in the world. If you believe that death and decay are unavoidable, those things come from your spirit into your body. Believe that the spirit of life can always come into you. This belief gives you life. When new life comes into your body, old or mostly dead cells must be shed. This is similar to how a tree sheds the dead leaves that may have stuck to it all winter when it gets new life. Every year, the animal or bird gets a new coat or feathers because of the same flow of our life force. It is in this way that changes happen in the whole structure of both birds and people. We call the most basic form of spirit, matter, spiritual law. It works in all shapes and sizes. For humans, this flow of force is stronger than for other living things. It doesn't flow the same way to everyone. There are people who receive more than others, but as time goes on, there will be people who receive so much of this influx that they are forced to see and live these other options. Our lower mind, which is made of matter, fights new ideas and thoughts when our higher mind hears them. The body is where these two forces are fighting, so it is also the one who is hurt. The higher power must win as soon as minds begin to believe, even a little, in the higher power, and accept that sickness and death are unavoidable. Some old mistake will be thrown out, and a new idea will become permanent. With each fight, the body will get better and stronger, and the problems will get less uncomfortable until they end. People used to lose their bodies because they didn't know that getting sick is a way for the spirit to let go of old material thoughts and take on new ones. If they hold on to those thoughts, they have used their power in the wrong way. Because they believe in it, they hold on to it. Your faith will determine whether your illness is a good or bad thing. You can really help your mind do this process if you just believe that getting rid of old, worn-out things is a spiritual process. But if you think that illness is only a physical problem and that it doesn't help in any way, then you are using the force to add more mistakes to the spirit, which will show up in the form of flesh and blood. Until your spirit finally changes the body it has been carrying and lets go of it, it will reject the whole body according to the same rules it uses to reject a spiritually dead part of the body. If you laugh off the idea that your body can become immortal by constantly renewing its materials, you shut one door to life and open another to death and decay. We're not telling you to believe this because the way you think right now might not let you. There are many things that will happen in the future that none of us can believe in the present. We can pray for or demand faith that gives us a reason to believe if the thing we think is impossible is something we want. Faith will come when we ask for it. It means having the power to believe what is true or having the mind's ability to accept true thoughts. Columbus's belief in the presence of a new land gave him the power to hold on to a better idea than other people of his time. People who trust themselves have more power to get things done than people who don't trust themselves. When you ask for faith in options that seem bizarre and new to you, you are also asking for the power and ability to bring to yourself the ability to understand why things that are true for you are true. You will get the truth if you keep asking for it, and all truth means the power to do things that seem impossible. A man who was sick was healed by the Christ of Judea. Your faith has made you whole. We understand this text to mean that the person who was healed had a natural power to believe that he could be healed. This power came from his own spirit, not from Christ. It works in his body to heal him right away of all his illnesses. Christ brought out this power in that man's heart, but Christ did not give the person that power. It was already there in the healed person. Christ brought him back to life, though it was probably only for a short time. None of the quick healings that happened in those days were said to have been lasting. They got sick again and finally died. Why? Because the power or faith they claimed for a short time didn't last. The great power had not taught them how to keep raising it by its silent demand. They got sick again when their spirits were affected by material belief, which made it hard for the spirits to carry the weight of the belief. There wasn't anyone with Christ to give him a quick boost of faith or power. Not a single person can become whole for good. In this case it means, among other things, living forever in the flesh and never getting sick again. To do this, you must always believe and count on the most important thing to get the power of faith, and not on anything else. In this way, each mind needs to be left alone. If you always need other people's help, You can't reach the highest level of power. If you do that, you will only borrow or take on their religion. For a while, that stolen faith might do great things, but it won't last. If we lose the thing we draw from, you will fall back into the muck of sadness and sickness. You have never really taken from the right place, which is the highest. Whether we say it consciously or unknowingly, the best thing we can ask for or wish is that our faith grows stronger. When you change how you think about being sick and truly believe that it is your spirit trying to get rid of the wrong ideas you have had since you were a child, then those wrong ideas showing up in your body will slowly start to change things. Along with letting go of those mistakes, you start the process of getting rid of all the old mistakes in your thinking. Because you were afraid of death, you got sick many years ago. In a way, the sickness packed the memory of that scared state of mind and the belief that went with it into your body. That belief has been hurting you for years, as all false beliefs do. That memory is a real part of who you are, just like all of your old memories and events are real parts of who you are now. It stays in your mind and spirit. That memory is still there in your mind, even though the physical memory of it has faded. It is the memory of a false belief that says death and decay can never be defeated. This idea will go away when you change your actions and state of mind, but it has to show up in your body too. All of your old attitudes and colds, fevers and other illnesses must go away from your body language. At first, they might be very bad, but over time they change into a different form. At that point, you let go of old false beliefs. But if you don't change your mind and keep thinking that physical decay and death are fixed, then each illness adds another mistake, another lie, another burden to your already heavy load of delusions. When added to the others, this effect is sure to weaken, crush, and kill the person in real life. It's never too late to get or accept the truth. It's never too late for that truth to start renewing its body. And even if that body doesn't live on, the spirit gains strength from getting that truth that will be of immeasurable value to it on the other side. With that help, he might be able to make his spiritual body even better. The best thing about a spiritual body that is almost perfect is being able to grow and live in both the physical and spiritual worlds. If you think that people will always lose their bodies and not have the power to keep them in perfect health, as they did in the past, you are not seeing things clearly enough. Are you ready to believe and receive? If so, you can open yourself to greater opportunities and deeper truths. Then you weighed your theory against the fact that everything on earth is constantly improving, gaining more power, and opening up new vistas. Remedy items and medicines can help a lot with the expulsion process. Any school of medicine doctor who is skilled and caring can be very helpful. The mind and idea that the drugs and doctor's advice are taken into account are very important. If you believe that both will help your spirit get rid of a load and build a new body for you, then you will aid the spirit in both of those tasks. If, on the other hand, you think that the medicine and the doctor are just supporting the body, and that the body will weaken and die sometime in the next 30, 40 or 50 years, then you will hold on to the false belief faster than you can let go of it, and in the end, it will be too much for the spirit to bear. The person will be stooped with old age, have weak shoulders and knees, and walk very slowly because they only believe in things that are physical and will die. The spirit is not of this world and will not die, but you can give it worldly thoughts that will make it want to be on earth. When an old man has a heavy load on his mind, it's not his body that bends and bows. It's the force that moves the body, which is the spirit that is filled with material thoughts that it can't take in or understand. The body is always an outward reflection of the spirit or mind. A body that is renewed, made beautiful, refreshed, and stronger means that the mind is also renewed with new thoughts, plans, hopes, purposes, and goals. Eternal life is not living a life that is half dead from being very old. If a person only sees the temporary and physical side of life, if they believe that food and drink only affect their body, and if they think that their body is only fed by forces inside themselves and not by something invisible from the spiritual world, then that person thinks that there is only what they can see, hear and feel with their physical senses, which is matter that is always temporary and will disappear. This person attracts all the forces and elements that cause temporary and disappearing things to themselves. These things, when they work on their bodies, give them those traits. It takes thousands of years for the body to die before it is buried. The light face and skin color of paper show half-dead skin, or a part of the body where the spirit is working to get rid of the dead part and bring in the new one in a way that isn't quite right. When people were young and still fresh, their spirits left and came back stronger. As the years went by, that spirit took in more and more lies. Its growth and understanding slowed down, and it took longer and longer to react to changes in the body. The body starts to age, which means it's going to die, because the spirit wasn't getting enough of the thing that gives us new thoughts, which is life. There is such a strong belief in weakness and decay in the race that knowledge is often shown as an old man with grey hair, a bald head, and a cane over his shoulder. That means she is so wise that she can't keep her body from breaking down. The form we call a child is a spirit or mind that has taken on a new body. During this time, the kid has more spiritual knowledge than when they are growing physically older. It is the intuition's hidden knowledge. He is more open to the truth for a while, so the processes of spiritual separation and assumption with the body are done more perfectly until he is 18 or 20 years old. The bloom and freshness of youth are kept alive by these relatively quick changes in the body. But eventually, the higher spiritual process stops working altogether. As taught, beliefs in the wrong don't come from other people. They take shape in the body, even though the higher mind fights them through pain and illness. As the weight of believing in the worldly and temporary grows, the body takes on a form that matches. In the end, the higher mind can't handle such a thought any longer. It lets go of the weight and leaves behind a dead body. The spirit gets rid of the things it doesn't need when the body dies. These things can no longer be used or taken by the spirit. However, it is ideal for the spirit to have a physical body that can be refined just as the spirit itself is refined. This is because when the spirit and its instrument are both refined at the same rate, our happiness rises significantly and our faculties can't fully develop until the spirit and body are united. According to what the text says, when Jesus Christ of Judea told the elders of Israel about the little child, "Unless you become like this child, you cannot enter the kingdom of heaven," he meant that they should be as open to this force as the child's spirit was at that time. Keeping up this kind of flow would keep the body looking young forever. A kid is more spirit-led than an adult. He is more natural, doesn't care about politics, is honest about who he likes and doesn't like, and often has more sense. He doesn't like a bad person, even if his parents don't see anything wrong with them. He feels or knows more about life than his folks think he does, but he can't put his thoughts into words. The ideas are still there, though. He hasn't learned how to deal with the world's habit of smiling in your face and sneering behind your back. It's pretty normal for your spirit to be able to speak easily for a while. If we act like someone we're not, if we say things out loud but don't really think them, then the spirit loses its freedom to express itself. When we go to court to get something, when we fake happiness and satisfaction on the outside while being angry, disappointed or irritated on the inside, we become more and more strange in our morals and wants. We lose touch with our higher spiritual senses and powers for a while. We lose the ability to tell the difference between truth and lies and the spiritual feeling of what faith means. We also lose the ability to call on this great and necessary power. And if this power of pull is taken away, the spirit has to let go of the body. It is not the body that leaves the ghost. It is the phantom, or spirit, that turns away from the body. When you let go of doubt, your spirit opens up to more real thoughts and things, which gives it more power and allows it to work in all of the body's parts and functions. During the process of putting off, which happens more quickly in material youth, things that are harmful or adulterous will be rejected through touch and taste. Such power can be reached that if an active poison is put in the mouth by chance, it is immediately found and rejected, and if it is eaten, it is immediately thrown out of the stomach. It's not the stomach that turns down food that isn't right for it or throws out the dose that makes you sick. It's the spirit that moves the organ because it knows that the substance being thrown out isn't good because it doesn't have any spirit or quality that can help the spirit. The spirit will become more sensitive to all things that can hurt you, whether they are seen or not. This sensitivity will grow greater as the spirit gains power. It will dismiss it and tell you right away about the bad person and what he is planning as it gets you closer to all that is evil. It will tell you what is safe and good for you to be with. Finally, it will get rid of or refuse to accept all the bad thoughts you may be having every day without realizing it. These thoughts are worse than anything material because they poison the spirit. As faith grows, spirit will call on a lot of material helpers that will make the rebuilding process much easier. These tools will help with choosing food, finding good friends, and making other changes to habits and ways of doing things. But the spirit is what must drive and guide these tools. When the urge comes, you will have to act on it. You won't eat the food you should avoid because your taste buds will reject it. You will no longer be able to hang out with people who are bad for you, and the bad habit will go away straight away. But if you make strict rules about these things with the hope that they will become spiritualized later on, you are letting your material self take over. The lower or material mind is trying to set rules for the spiritual or higher self and make it better. Let the spirit, which has grown in faith, do the work, and when it's time to give up all animal food and other gross things, the desire and taste for them will be gone. When we say that we believe life in the flesh is possible, we don't mean that any live person can achieve it or that they can't. We're not saying that people need to start working on things right away if they want to live forever. All we're saying is that this is what will happen sooner or later as a result of the evolution and growth of spirit from the most basic to the most advanced, which has always been happening on this planet and in all kinds of matter. Matter is the spirit briefly taking on a solid form so that it can be seen with the right sense. As our faith in these spiritual processes to get rid of the old and bring in the new grows, we will be able to further refine or spiritualize our bodies. As a result, we will be able to help those closest to us on the invisible side of life, because as we become more spiritualized in the flesh, they are helped to materialize more of the spirit. In other words, we will be able to touch each other physically, because in the material thoughts we discard, there is an element that can be taken up to become more material. Their spiritual bodies also follow the same rules when it comes to the process of detaching and taking possession. What they discard as useless is, for them, the best and most suitable for us. We spiritually absorb this element, which is spiritual food and life for us. The things they throw away help us spiritualize the body, and the things we throw away help them give their spirit form. People are drawn to aspiration because they can't keep their minds calm. People go through depressive episodes because no matter how well they are living their ideal life, they are still affected by the chaos going on around them to a greater or lesser degree. Even though you are kind and caring to animals, you can't stop the people who kill wild birds, your pets, and free animals that come to the grove to build their nests. They do it for fun or to make money. You live in a place where violence and killing are constant. Animals that people care for are bred in manufactured settings, which means they are grown in ways that aren't natural or healthy, for fun or profit. This includes all types of fancy breeding. Nature does what is best for the bird or animal when it is left alone, and birds and animals have rights just like people do. For example, a taste that is forced on a goose will make its liver swell and get sick so that a certain dish can be made with it. The breed is being bred with disease around it. When you're sick, you're unhappy, both mentally and physically, and this unhappiness affects you if your organization is more subtle and open. A better life will be easily upset by the bad things around it. You can hardly travel abroad without feeling mental or physical pain. Your homes, cars and ships are overheated and full of smelly fumes from the fuel used and the bodies that are in them. You may have to sleep in rooms where this unhealthy heat is partly relied upon for warmth. When you're at rest, you have to breathe it in. When you're unconscious of recovery, you have to become a part of you. You eat rancidity and decadence at the nicest public tables. You are hurt by scenes of cruelty, brutality, and injustice. That's the main thought that's going through the minds of many people and affecting your own. Every physical thing around you has a thought or mental action inside it, and the brightness or darkness of the thought depends on the condition of the physical thing. For example, eating old fruit or vegetables can indirectly make you sad, but eating living, fresh fruit brings you life. As things break down, they become disorganized. You want to eat perfect order that isn't quite ripe yet. You want it to be at its most mature stage so that you can take it in that form. When it comes to food, air and heat, you don't always, unconsciously, or even necessarily follow many rules of physical and mental health. As was already said, you have always been dependent on artificial supports. You were born this way. You may have been born with a body that was partially developed from artificial and improper nutrition, and an unnatural life that was passed down through the blood of many generations. This unnatural life must hurt in some way. Your alcohol-based drug makes you feel better for a short time, but it causes you more pain in the long run. But the harm of alcohol is really small compared to the many unknown causes of human harm that happen every day in busy places and are more dangerous. You must be wondering why, even when we're by ourselves, we can't keep the peace of mind and calmness that we know we want. If you have been physically and mentally ill in the past, you expect to be cured of such a long illness right away. Some ways of thinking can only be broken down gradually. The same is true for some body habits that come from thinking habits. For example, the habit of worrying, rushing, paying too much attention to things that aren't important right now, borrowing trouble, and many others that affect every part of life. Together, they make you tired, and tiredness is the real cause of most illnesses that affect the body. The ability to fight these many causes of pain and ensuing depression of the spirit is diminished by anything that wears out the body, whether it be movement, the exertion of good or evil, kindness or selfishness. If earthliness or the simpler spirit is more important to us, we see the earthly side of people and mostly see what we don't like about them. We take a long time to see the good in people and dislike many others. But when the spirit takes over, this changes. Then we can clearly see the good in everyone, which makes us more drawn. And because we can see the good in everyone, we find it in other people too, and we stop being so strongly turned off by personal stereotypes. Although we love more than we hate, as long as earthliness rules, we feel more hatred than love. We see more to hate and detest than to admire. We are blind to good and too sensitive to evil, seeing and feeling more evil than good. We are hurt by it. To hate, to be strongly prejudiced, to be unable to hear the name of the person hated without shivering with anger or disgust, is to keep hurting yourself. To admire, to have clear sight to see the good in the baser nature and keep the evil out of sight, is to us a source of strength, health, and growing power. Love has power, and it's always stronger when you can admire someone. Gratitude is the law of heaven, and anger is the law of earth. Spirituality is drawn to what it finds anywhere. It sees the diamond in the rough, even if it's stuck in the worst mold. It sees the germ of the best quality in the worst nature. It can look at that germ and hide the worst parts of itself. By doing this, it gives that germ its power and brings it to life. When she is around and the higher nature affects it, the lower nature rises to its highest level. The real preacher doesn't have to ask in words. He just gives off an air of holiness that everyone can feel. The rules need to be felt. Someone who is biased against sinners is just a spiritual porcupine that stings everything he touches. So long as we feel that strong repulsion to see only the faults of the other, we shall be governed by that feeling for a long time. We are fettered. We are in his presence so full of hatred that we are unable to bring the better part of ourselves to bear. All our own wickedness is called forth and comes to the front. There is only a clash of opposing wills in such a case. Though in reality we are the more powerful party, we become the weaker for the moment. We are compelled to allow the pupil, the one whom we should teach by example, to dominate over us. Cynicism is born of revulsion and personal prejudices carried to the extreme. The cynic ends by finding everyone unbearable and in the end hates himself. No cynic is ever in good health, for cynicism is a poisoning of the blood. The cynic is always at home to the ideal outside. When he should find it within, once found, he would always create ideals from without. His own loving spirit would graft and build himself, or all those with whom he came in contact. Divinity also catches and would be. A bad plan from God that would only let bad things spread. In due time, goodness spreads. People will learn that health is important too, but so far, people have grown to admire those who choose bad, as if they were the only ones who could protect them. In the meantime, it is believed that any kind of good will have to go through painful and hard processes to get into people's bad nature. Without enough ambition and clarity of thought, you can't have the best health and strength. Thoughts that are pure bring the cleanest blood, while thoughts that are impure bring people who are sad, angry, whining, looking for blame, slandering, and restless. It will definitely make the blood dirty and fill the body with sickness. Even the best care you give your body won't help much if you don't have ambition. You can dress and act very cleanly and pay close attention to what you eat, but in the end, you're just cleaning the outside of a vessel that is constantly filled with filth. As your thoughts become more pure, taking care of your body and keeping it clean will come naturally. The tank will clean itself. Taking good care of your body in every way will show that you love your shape. Bathing won't feel like a chore, but like a fun thing to do. The normal need of hunger will control the diet. What people accept or reject will depend on their taste or pleasure. Overindulging won't be possible, so a healthy taste will be ready to recognize the first faint sign of fullness as a sign to stop all kinds of pleasure. Aspiring for the better and higher is what gives the body a real new birth over time, a complete change in the quality and makeup of the skin, bones, blood, muscles, and sinews, a change in the way things are put together that matches the spiritual. The flesh becomes spiritualized, which means it is made up of better things. This process happens in all minds that want to reach their goals. When you control your spirit over your flesh, you are completely immune to disease, all of your forces get stronger, and you can do a lot more in any area. It makes sure that the spirit will leave this world without any pain, that the body will just fall asleep, and that the spirit will rise on the other side of life. To get rid of the disease, the road of self-healing involves calling on the elements of health and strength. These elements are said to come to you through prayer. Vim or strength is a part of the spirit, or the more polished matter. The more determined you are to get it, the faster it will come. This is the key to keeping your strength up and getting more of any other quality you want. When you quickly notice and feel the signs of a lack of power, it's time to call, pray, and wish anything more strongly. When you connect with the elements, power comes to you right away. You might get tired, but putting your will to work will give you power right away. Put yourself in a situation where this kind of influx is likely to happen, like waking up weak, sluggish, and lacking in both physical and mental energy. Try to keep your mind off of your illness as much as possible. As much as possible, you should think about being strong, healthy, active, and full of new life. Get to this state of mind with help. As much as possible, put it on things that represent the strength and power of nature, like the storm and weather, the rolling surf and beauty of the ocean, and the rising sun in all its glory to heal and strengthen people, animals, and plants. If you come across a piece of writing or poems that strongly evokes this character, you should read it out loud or to yourself. By doing so, you will prepare your mind to receive the full force. To sum it up, think of strength and power, and they will come to you. You will get health if you think about it. Let your mind focus on your weakness, which means you'll never get better, on the dark side, which means sadness, gloom, and darkness, and you will attract things that are bad for you. The same way that decay makes things around us decay, any weakly decadent way of thinking takes in other weakly decadent ways of thinking from things we don't see. A lot of sick and hurt people pay more attention to their problems than to the bodies that carry them. These people think and talk about them all the time. This is because they want support for the pain rather than for the body that is in pain, and the pity that comes from their friends only makes the hurt worse. When the patient and their friends should be thinking about getting the patient healthy and strong, people around the patient will be more likely to be affected by that thought, so it will have more power to make them stronger. It is important to note that this case will not say that this kind of healing can always happen right away. If your mind has been unknowingly moving in the opposite direction of loss of self for a long time, you can't just stop and move in the opposite strength-drawing direction right away. It's possible that it has trained itself to dwell on the bad side so much that it can't focus on any other. But the harder he tries, the more power will come his way until he is in the right mood for force pull. The work has to be done, and it might take a while, but every bit of work that is done adds up and can never be lost. Do not force or randomly ask any part of your body to heal from an accident or for any system or function to get stronger. Your body is a different person from your mind, and it has its own unique physical life. There are many parts that make up this organization, and each one has a specific job to do. For example, the eye sees, the ear hears, the tongue tastes, the stomach digests, and the lungs breathe. In a way, they are all their own groups. Each of them is open to the way that love can bring life and energy to them, and that thing can heal a wound with love and care. The element not only makes people treat each other carefully and gently, but it also gets into the wound, acts as a balm and a force, and slowly joins the broken parts back together. Treating it with disinterest, like binding or washing it as an annoying job, will only lead to careless or even rough treatment. It won't heal or strengthen with love, which is what it needs. When you mix it with real hate, you harm the part that is impacted. Hate is like poison, and love is like medicine. The process and concept are the same for an eye that is weak, an ear that is deaf, or any other system that is sick or weak. Sometimes send this love to the part that is sick and ask it to get stronger in that way. Don't let the fact that this statement seems simple put you off, but try this. If you get impatient or angry with your eyes or ears for not working perfectly, you are only making them work harder because you are impatient with them. No one in our race has yet lived a life that is mostly perfect. Such a life would have a body that doesn't age or hurt, and it would also not die in the way that it does now. A pretty perfected life is one in which the mind or spirit has gained a lot of power by simply asking for it, or, to use a different metaphor, by setting the mind up like a magnet in the right way to attract power. This power will then be able to retrieve or make over the body with newer, better material, and also put on or take off this body as desired. The Jews had only killed Christ's physical body. His spirit had the power to take on a new body. This is what he did right after he was crucified. Elijah's spiritual or finer body, which was the opposite of his physical body and was made of such fine materials that he had entered the realm of the divine and could use an attraction or power that draws upward, which is something that scientists have studied for a long time. On the other hand, the pull of gravity is downward or earthward. The pull of aspiration, or every thought or desire to be more noble, more refined, more free from malice, ill will, and to do good to others without expecting anything in return, is an invisible force that tends or actually attracts upward, away from the earth, or any form of this grosser kind of spirit that can be seen with the physical eye or seems to be touchable by the body. You can call on this order of thought from the higher worlds of spirit or element whenever you ask, pray, or want it. In this way, you bring the unseen part of yourself that is part of your body and spirit to you. It then starts to bring you into the bigger, better, and purer world of life that exists in bands or zones around our planet. If you keep thinking about this goal, it will help you stand up straighter. The term, the upright man or woman, suggests that this unseen force has given you hope and helped you in both physical and spiritual ways. It puts every part of the body in its proper place. The current of thought is what brings down from above the mood of immature or impure thoughts, the mood of reckless or personal selfishness that only wants to please itself and doesn't care about anyone else, and the mood or thought of sadness, discouragement, or despair of self. These feelings come from the strong attraction of seen or physical things on earth. When you are ruled by gravitational attraction or the attraction of material things, your shoulders will round and hunch, your head will bow, and your eyes will be looking downward. Your heart will also be bowed by sadness, worry, or anger, as well as by an immature thought or attraction from things you see or the more basic forms of the spirit. All of the body's parts will be moved in the same way and pointed toward the ground. The shape of a man or woman's body, their facial expression, all of their body language, right down to the crease in their finger, and their physical health are all exact reflections of their spiritual state. In other words, the state of their mind is a duplication in both the material world and the unseen world. The desire to be more like a god or goddess and the drive to beat all the evil inside you will grow as the pull of hope gets stronger. It's the only way to beat any evil outside of you, and it will make your body stand taller, your eyes more open and raised, your heart rise, and your cheeks turn a brighter color. Your blood will fill up with a finer, more powerful element, giving your limbs strength, vigor, flexibility, and the ability to move with ease. After that, you will be getting more and more of the elixir of life, which is not a dream, but a spiritual possibility. Our race has been ruled by the draw of things or elements it sees up until now. There has been nothing else for us because it has been said that there is only what can be seen or felt with the lower senses. Some people may look thirsty even though there are fresh water springs all around them. If they don't know of any, there aren't any for them. We have been in a state similar to the most advanced race in the future. On this world, there will be no more painful deaths of the body like there are now. All painful deaths are caused by sin and breaking the law of life. Birth or growth of a new physical body will be the end of the body's future. The old body will serve as a shell or covering for the new one until it is grown and ready to come out, like a moth or butterfly emerging from its cocoon. Until the spirit reaches a level of power where it can instantly will and draw a body from the elements around it to use for as long as it pleases in this level of life. Such growths and changes will occur less frequently. Paul saw this coming when he asked, "Where, O death, is thy sting?" And again when he wrote, "The last great enemy to be overcome is death." We quote Paul because he was the most old teacher who clearly saw these things coming. There was no question that other people knew about them from both written and unwritten human history on earth, from times much earlier than those suggested by the Mosaic creation. These facts, these chances to avoid aging, death and pain, and to grow and get a new body and a new life that is more refreshed, younger and stronger, affect us deeply. We shouldn't think of these words as only touching a race of people from a long time ago. They are options for us, and they have the power to bring us wealth and new bodies. How can you use these skills if you don't know about them? Then you're like a beggar who doesn't know he has $1,000 bill sewn into the inside of his worn-out coat. These facts are for you. The very valuable pearl. You can't sell this pearl. You can only trade it for your neighbors. You can only grow and use your own skills. You can't take on your neighbors. You might ask, do these facts and wonders fit with the time and place we live in now? But our times are not ordinary or dull. The only thing that can make them seem that way is that we can't see clearly. Sometimes more than once, we are surrounded by the same things and have some of the same skills. So, the place where the 3 Jewish teens went through the fire without getting hurt, where the prophet Daniel used the power of thought to calm down the lions in the den, where Paul shook off the poison of the snake, and where Jesus did his amazing things. You will ask, wasn't that God's power? It's the same power that can work through us, whether it's God's power or the good spirit that never ends working through his children. It's just the power of higher mind over lower mind that grows stronger the more we ask for it, demand it, imitate it, and depend on it. Or, to put it another way, everything we see is an expression of lower mind. Rocks, hills, clouds, waves, trees, animals, and people are all different forms of the lower, cruder mind. Mind having power over matter means that the higher mind is in charge of all of these lower mind traits. Aspiration, praying, or demand to be someone better, to have more power, or to become more polished, will bring you more fine elements and forces. That is spirit to you, but you must want to share what you receive with others. If you only want to live for yourself, you can't call on the fullness of this power. You might get some of it and be able to do a lot with it, but if you only want to live for yourself, your demand will only lead to pain, sickness, and failure because you are selfish. A new thought is like a new life. When an inventor's mind first comes up with an idea for a product or service, it fills him with joy, and the blood that flows through his body gets a new sense of energy. The author or poet is inspired by a new idea. By creative, I mean one of the relatively few who are actually creative, not one of the many who take the spark of genius and put it in their own lanterns, often successfully passing it off as their own. In times of sadness, depression, or disappointment, good news means that a dream might come true or a threat might be taken away. However, good news is just a thought, a picture in the mind of what is wanted, not the thing itself. However, a show that makes you laugh, a play that is so well done that it holds your attention, a conversation with someone you really like, or an activity, exercise or art that interests and fascinates you are all like food and nourishment for the body. In the excitement or focus of the moment, the hunger for material food may go away or be forgotten. We don't just need bread to live, but our minds are always hungry for new ideas. The play may be beautiful at first, but after seeing it a few times, it may get old. The air may be interesting at first, but after hearing it a few times, it may grow old. We may even want a change in the quality of our thoughts, something more appealing. All of these changes come to mind, but only for a short time. It's possible to see a play, opera, or artist again and enjoy them even more. This could be because of an inner connection, new growths and shades in the way the artist shows things, or a new ability on our part to see things we couldn't see before. Then let's call every new thought and feeling food. Each person needs as much food to be physically and mostly perfectly healthy as they need. Bread. Just like we always want and need new food, we always want and need new ideas. When you keep thinking the same thing over and over, you're thinking old thoughts. This makes your mind and body slow down. Let us imagine that every morning we wake up knowing that we will discover something useful and enjoyable, as well as something useful and enjoyable for others. This something will last forever, for both of us and for others, an unexpected result of yesterday's truth that seemed fully developed, and it will show us how to make life even more full of genuine and harmless enjoyment. Some of the most important rules of nature's law may have been first noticed in things that weren't thought to be important before, like a leaf falling or its color changing because of the fall frost. These ideas are shown to work by how bright their colors are, which is almost like the start of spring warmth. Imagine how good it would feel if an open and willing mind could find today a reason to improve something that seemed useless yesterday. An increase in patience while doing the work, which is strange, and an increase in courage. It means being able to see the beauty in things that you didn't notice yesterday because you didn't care, having the power to control your hunger, and being able to push away unpleasant and therefore harmful thoughts. These thoughts should make you feel good, right? Life and health are still there, and this order and commitment to new ideas never stops going in any way. You will find the power, space, and ability to be more orderly tomorrow if you are orderly today. If your last effort was your biggest success in music, drawing, writing, acting, or speaking, you will find a way to make it even better tomorrow. That won't change anything about the last work. It's just adding a more beautiful and delicate tint to a picture that was already lovely. Being aware of that never-ending progress is also food for the mind that is growing. It's not the same as bread, but bread is the bread of life, and we should want it every day. If you wake up every day with the thought that a great power, an infinitely wise mind, is always ready to give you more information to help you with your problems, both inside and out, wouldn't that thought and the confidence that comes from it be good for you? When you've been told many times that this power really does exist and can help you, and your hope has turned into belief, give yourself the chance that the new thought is both a healthy boost and the food you need for a better life. The next question is how we can do this. What this means is, how can we tune into or become more open to all that is good and beautiful in nature? Our faith says that what is useful always means what is beautiful, so saying, live a pure life, is almost a false answer. To do that, you have to fight a lot of natural tendencies and meet a lot of other conditions and problems. The desire to collect seems to be a basic human trait. In its purest form, someone who gains money would also accumulate power and traits of the mind. He is happy that he is $500 richer tonight than he was this morning. He says that the thought of accumulating money gives him a little bread of life, but not an idea of long life, or, in the end, if life is healthy. I can say for myself that I am wealthier now than I was in the morning, thanks to being more patient, having a little more skill or ability in my art, and learning some things I didn't know 24 hours ago. We are now fully aware of the idea that we can hold thought, knowledge, and power, and that we may be able to hold an infinite amount of all of these things. We are also aware that the universe is full of knowledge, power, and new thoughts, and that we can take them all from it. The bank can't break, just like eternity can't end. It's better to forget about thousands of things, events, and scenes from your past life than to remember them. When you forget, you make room for a new idea, which is really a new life. When you remember, you stop that new idea and life from coming into your life. By forgetting, I mean that you shouldn't only think about bad memories and scenes from the past. You can't forget or erase from memory anything you have ever remembered, because your brain stores everything you see, hear, feel, or learn. It can be brought back to your attention in some situations. Instead of using the word forget, it would be more accurate to say that you should work on developing the power to block out everything that makes you sad or that you find to be unproductive. It is impossible to erase anything from your mind because every scene, event, and experience you remember is now a part of you, whether you are truly alive or not. That is, your spirit is made up of all the things you've done and the memories that came from them. Some memories are clear, some are fuzzy, and many are hidden so deep that you can't see them right now, but you can remember them in some situations. If you could get rid of these memories, it would be like getting rid of a big part of your mind. All experiences are valuable for the wisdom they bring or the ideas they spark, but once you've learned something from an experience, it's not worth repeating it, especially if it was unpleasant. When you remember it or think about it, you actually do it again. People do this when they are stuck on the bad things that happened in the past, or when they remember how happy and bright their youth was compared to the sad parts of their middle or old age. You can live in the pleasant memory of your youth if you want to. It will make you feel better. But don't put it against the dark background of the present. Don't think about it. Remember that the time of your childhood and youth, when everything seemed fresh and new, was also the time of some people's old age, when the world seemed dull and lifeless, and when they saw that all that life had to offer had been used up, and nothing was left but to wither and die. Also, remember that if the world seems darker today, and the sun seems to go down instead of rising, it will seem the same to kids and teens 10 or 15 years old as it did to you when you were that age. No one could live and enjoy life if they lived in the past and refused to fix or open their mind to the future. By doing this, they gather more old, mostly lifeless thoughts, and these thoughts become real in their bodies, turning their flesh, bone, and blood into a manifestation of their dead, inert spirit. As long as the spirit can handle it, carrying a growing load will only make you weak and unhappy. But a mind that rejects the old because it doesn't serve it and always reaches for the new will add new thoughts to itself, and this will make the body younger. In fact, you make the old things agreeable or disagreeable to you based on how you think about them ahead of time. For example, some people will immediately raise objections and find problems with someone else's plan if they are having a hard time. When we think about problems, we actually make them. People who stay up all night thinking about, planning, creating, or making possible problems are using this power and industry in the wrong way, which makes those problems more likely to happen. In order to be successful in business, we need to keep our minds focused on the end goal. We need to picture the thing we're planning getting done, the system or method being put in place, and the operation, movement, or business growing stronger and more valuable. If you spend time and energy thinking about or living through problems or obstacles from the past, and then using that to create new problems or oppositions, you are literally destroying your business or making problems for yourself. Forgetting what was left behind and moving on with what was before is a very useful saying that can be used in 1,000 different situations. You can't do business without them. Men who give up the old ways of doing things and move on to the new ones are the richest. The men who really take the path of return are the ones who are open to the new from the time they are young. As the years go by, they keep doing things that were new to them when they were younger but are now more common. The money may keep coming in, but their ways are really old, and in a few more years, the new system will have surpassed their business. Today, don't start living with the thought that you were weak or sick at any time yesterday. Instead, forget about that weakness. Move on with the thought that you will be strong at that time. In your mind, when you think about being sick, weak, or ill yesterday, you are actually setting yourself up to have the same physical problems today. When you start the day by thinking about the new, the thought of health and strength at the time when you first felt tired, you are setting yourself up to achieve that health and strength. Try again the next day if it doesn't happen on the first day of the test. You will get to the state you want at some point. My mind might ask, how can I test these claims that haven't been proven? You can start to test it if you try any of the thought work ways mentioned here in this time of decay and death that will finally catch up with everyone. It will pay off, and you'll be able to understand this for yourself. People don't have to believe this law completely, but if you try it out, it seems likely that you will be able to prove it even more if you keep going in this way. Because of this constant life, irrational biases come up. In the past, a man in his 60s or 70s would often act, behave, and do things the way he did when he was younger. He agrees with them because they are the best fit for him. He most likely would dislike and be prejudiced against a man who goes about his daily life wearing knee breeches, socks, a vest, a frilly shirt, and a wide-brimmed hat from the 18th century. But that style was popular 100 years ago. His great-grandfather probably wore a suit like that. But it's likely that your great-grandfather would have looked down on the well-dressed man of today with the same disrespect and bias. For a few years, the great-grandfather and the great-grandson have had these two unreasonable attitudes against each other, based only on the fact that they were styles that only those two men wore as kids. Of course, it is impossible for someone to dress or live differently than what most people do without experiencing unpleasant or even harmful effects. This is because many minds sending you thoughts of prejudice, dislike, or ridicule would typically hurt the mind and body. But having those kinds of feelings about someone who doesn't follow the rules, especially if that person doesn't bother anyone's peace or comfort, is a very bad thing. If someone looks down their nose at a man today for wearing ancient Greek clothes, which were definitely smarter and more comfortable than our clothes just 200 years ago, that person is being mentally and logically tyrannical. The man who carried the first umbrella in England felt the same way. This thought comes from an old glitch in the mind that makes it keep thinking about the past and forget about the present. Life is always moving forward, so if we want to move forward, we should always look ahead. And everyone moves forward, even the silly, rude, and evil people. We are all being pushed forward by an unmatchable, endless, and strong force. However, while everyone is being pushed forward, many people stop and turn back, unknowingly resisting this force. They are inviting bad things like sickness, pain, and trouble by doing this. Whatever the mind focuses on or keeps in mind is what it draws to itself, and all that thinking and imagining must eventually come to life in the real world. I say this over and over because it's the key to your happiness or misery, your long-term health and wealth, or even your poverty. Most of the time, you should keep this in mind. Our thoughts are like an unseen magnet that always pulls in things we can see and touch. We will be more careful to keep our minds on the right things as we become more aware of this. We will think of happiness and success instead of sadness and failure. It's great that our happiness or suffering is determined by a rule and method that seems so easy. But when you look into what people think are simple things in nature, you usually find that they are actually hard to understand riddles that keep getting deeper. What we care about most is figuring out a cause or agency that leads to a certain outcome. When we realize that we can think about our health, wealth, and position, we know that we have found the pearl of great price within ourselves. We quickly tell our neighbor that he too can seek and find this pearl and this power within himself, because no one loses anything by finding what is uniquely theirs. Everyone gains and is happier as they find their pearl. Life is more fun than anyone thought possible because it gives people the power to make more money and be happier in general. In real life, you have to be mature all the time. It refers to taking care of the body so that the spirit can use it in this level of existence whenever they want to. It means keeping the body safe from pain and illness, as well as the weakness and decay that come with old age. In reality, old age is just the spirit's instrument wearing out because it doesn't know how to fix it or make it new again. Life is the growth of powers and pleasures in us that even the best fiction has never fully explored. It means that you are becoming more and more aware of and in touch with everything that is great, wonderful, and beautiful in the world. An even more beautiful and wonderful finding, a way for our emotions to feel happiness that is stronger than ever. When you find and enjoy these joys, your life will never end. Its source will never run out. We won't know what kind of person they are or how good they are until they come to us. The apostolic record says, "Eye hath not seen, ear has not heard, nor has entered into the heart of man the things that God has prepared for those who love him." In everyday things, our lives and senses only give us a small amount of the pleasure they can give us. There is a lot more taste pleasure that our food could give us than it does now. When we're not fully grown, our hearing and sight don't give us nearly as much pleasure as they could. When food is eaten, it should work as a healthy boost and give the animal the drive, energy, and life that a young animal has. It is possible to make every muscle move in a way that makes you happy by following the spiritual law. In the future, a lot of people will find that peace of mind that can't be explained. It hasn't happened before doesn't mean it won't happen again. So, life will always be an illusion, whether its forces are at work or not. But a lot of people in our race don't look forward to these happy prospects at all. They haven't heard of them. A very large number of people would not believe they existed. They are stuck on the belief that life is short, that old age and decay are absolute certainties and must happen to everyone, that the body's powers must diminish at a certain age, and that the goal of life should be to save money for old age. It's not fun to think about these things, so many people don't. Instead, they close their eyes to these dark pictures of their future. Still, they believe in them and are afraid of them. As long as they believe, they have to keep pushing their minds forward. This pushing forward is what makes the thing believed in a real or material world. Preventing old age makes the body age, because people who have thought about themselves this way for a long time see themselves as weak and falling apart. The mind does for the future what it thinks will happen. When someone depends on something material, like money, to protect them from bad things, all material things are completely useless to stop those bad things. The old, sick and worn-out rich man can only buy a better room and bed with his money. His money doesn't keep him from getting sick or weak. Even though it might make him want the most expensive food, the prince is just as miserable as the poor man when he is in pain and grief. Being in a warm bed with lots of people around him doesn't help either. In all of this, the thought that was based on stupidity and went in the wrong way leads to a sad outcome. All of these bad things can only be stopped by developing the power of the spirit over the body. We can start to develop and boost that power when we understand and believe that our mind or spirit controls our bodies, and that whatever the mind thinks or imagines persistently now happens. While we're not aware of it, we think that old age or body wear and tear must be true because that's how things have always been. In our minds and unhelpful beliefs, we push ourselves toward sadness and physical decline. This sad picture stays in our minds all the time. We don't look toward that picture of life getting better and better because we don't believe in it. Christians and apostles taught a lot about life and ultimate life in the New Testament, which is the last book of Revelation. Death isn't fought for or suggested as a must, but as an enemy that must be defeated in the end. It was never said or implied that the great truths wouldn't come till millions and millions of years from now. The start of such an arrival might be now. Now, not because of the writings or speaking of a single person, but because many minds are now open to receiving the great revelation that has been knocking on humanity's door for hundreds of years, but has not been able to get in because the people it was meant to awaken and help have been too stupid and deaf to hear it. People who are spiritually dead are the only ones in the world. They are still stuck in their mistakes and haven't learned to forget or refuse to live on Earth's relatively dead and inactive elements instead of those that come from a greater source. Still, the few who are in the lead and moving forward cry out because the biggest pushing force is right in front of us. Human thought is a real thing, a force that comes from the mind like electricity. Every person hurts or heals, makes or breaks fortunes, works for good or evil all the time, day or night, awake or asleep, carving, molding and shaping people's faces to make them look good or bad. Before you spend so much time on other people, you might want to ask yourself if something isn't due to you. Whether you can become a living power or, with others, show that youth and health can replace old age, that all disease can be cured, that resources and material needs can come from laws and practices that aren't commonly used right now, and that life isn't short, unhappy, or hopeless, and that at best it is now. You will not help the world 100 times as much as if you thought about feeding a few hungry people or meeting a few of their basic needs. We had our richest men, our most powerful people, our most famous people in art, science and war, as well as our teachers, pastors, and biggest successes. Where does it end? Weakness, decay, and sickness. People who really care say that it's time to die when they have learned something from life. At best, a memorial for a live person is a regret for the unhappy end of a life. People need something better. This need, this cry, has been getting bigger and bigger for hundreds of years. You must always meet the demand. Now it's being answered, first to a small group of people, and then to a large group. This world is about to get new light, new information, and new effects in life, and all that it means.